it through the performance and went upstairs to pack, certain that he was fired.
Just as we were hitting the door, the stage door opened, and some woman who had come backstage to see Miss Cornell, society lady from Seattle, turned and said, "Oh, Mr. Plummer." And I turned back and she said, "What a wonderful performance you gave this afternoon." I'm not lying. I thought, oh my God, what a killer this is. I can't bear it. I said, "Thank you, Mama." And I started to go out again, and I looked back, and Miss Cornell was standing behind her, and she did that. Just that. And my life was saved.
It's been more than 50 years since that fateful performance. In 2002, Christopher Plummer was presented with the first ever Jason Robards Award for his lifetime contribution to the Broadway theater.
So you can imagine what this means to me tonight, coming as it does from such a wondrous rogue and such a friend. And if you think for one moment, Jason, that I cultivated our friendship to get this award, you're absolutely right. Jason became perhaps my best male friend. This great craggy face and that sort of soulful eyes which made women absolutely crazy about him. They wanted to save him from whatever sin he was about to commit. Well, I was so jealous of those eyes of his. He could just pull in the broads like nobody could. Son of a gun.
The two friends worked together and they played together. Robards introduced Christopher to New York nightlife and the best bars in town.
Everybody who was anybody always ended up at PJ Club. Jack Lemmon leaving one morning, I think it was Sunday, we suddenly went out in the blinding sunshine. It was about 9 o'clock. Jack came staggering out with all of us and kept saying, I gotta go to Mass. Where's the nearest? And he disappeared into the morning. And we kept calling after him, but Jack, you're not even Catholic. So it was a very confused time.
But what an exciting time. Christopher was proving his versatility on Broadway, on television, and in his first feature film, Stage Struck, directed by Sidney Lumet. But it was one particular performance that stole the attention of a young American actress, Tammy Grimes.
But all of a sudden, this man comes on stage, and it's like a knife coming on stage. It just, and kind of went like this, you know, when they're caught in the wood. And that was Christopher Plummer. I looked down and said, "Whoa, Christopher Plummer." And he was so handsome. And I wheedled my way backstage, pretending to be a friend of one of his friends called Donald Harron.
We were doing previews in New York, and she came backstage to see me, that I introduced her to Chris, and that was it.
Tammy and Christopher were married in 1956. The same year, a young and vibrant Canadian theatre company in Stratford, Ontario, beckoned Christopher Plummer home. Michael Langham, the new director at the Stratford Shakespearean Festival, invited Christopher to play the lead in Henry V, the first Canadian to be cast in such a major role at the festival. It was the most important classical part he had ever played.
It was the most exciting season that I've ever had at Stratford, and I think almost one of the most exciting that they've ever had, because it had the two cultures on the same stage at the same time.
Henry V was performed in English and in French, with actors from Montreal's Théâtre du Nouveau Monde.
I must say that there was something like love at first sight between Chris and us. We had a lot of parties. He was as mad as we were. And there was really a very warm relationship.
Christopher was at the top of his game, till one afternoon when he was rushed to the hospital with a suspected kidney stone. William Shatner was his understudy.
About 4 in the afternoon, they called me, and I fitted into his costumes. I'd never rehearsed a move. I looked at people's faces and saw them for the first time, and something magical had happened that night. But that fool got better right away, the resiliency of youth. See, if it happened to him now, it would take a couple of days for him to get better.
With the energy of youth, Christopher plunged into his first leading role in a motion picture. A good career move, perhaps. Except for the wildlife.
The guy who was our technical advisor, Bud Kirk, big burly guy, I noticed that he never seemed to go in the water when there was a scene in which Burl Ives and I had to wade up to our chests in a lagoon. Comfortably sitting on the shoreline in some deck chair, Bud would say, guys, if just a little bit further down, and then you're out of alligator territory. Then you're out of alligator territory. You're there. That's about right. Yeah, he was miles away from the shoreline, the coward.
Christopher and Tammy had only been married a year when their daughter, Amanda, was born in 1957.
He brought me a beautiful bouquet of flowers, and the note said, to Bubby 1 from Bubby 2, I'm jealous. And he was jealous. He said, I'm jealous of Amanda. That's the first thing I ever heard him say about having a baby.
Amanda grew up in a show business household. Her parents were busy working actors, and Christopher was focused on his career. His parties were just part of everyday life for Amanda.
I'd walk over their bodies, laying prostrate on the ground, Dad at the piano, George on the floor, Jason over in the corner. That was Dad and Mom, and that was family. And theater folk and other people were just part of the family.
But family life couldn't compete with the nightlife Christopher loved. And eventually, it took its toll on the marriage.
Finally, I sat down and I said, listen, I'm going to get the toughest lawyer I can possibly get, and I'm going to get all your money. And he'd say, oh, pooh, say, oh, stop it, Dan, stop it. He said, I don't believe in the law, so go ahead and do what you do. And I was so happy to have spent that time with him as an actress. But as a wife, well, I don't think we had much of a chance. And that was because of the booze.
Meanwhile, Christopher was the toast of Broadway. In the smash hit of the season, the Pulitzer Prize-winning play, J.B. But it would be his last Broadway role for a while. Anxious to try his talent abroad, he accepted a leading role with the most prestigious theatre company in England. At the Royal Shakespeare Theatre in Stratford-on-Avon, Christopher found himself in the company of Britain's finest young actors.
Every member of that company, including a couple of spear carriers, went on to become stars in their own right. We had Vanessa Redgrave, she was about 19, 20 at the time. Judi Dench was the youngest of all. And then we had Diana Rigg, Sir John Gielgud, and Dame Peggy Ashcroft, Dame Edith Evans. I mean, we had the cream of English theatre. And I don't think many actors had come over from the other side and played leading roles at England's major theatre. But they treated me with great hospitality. And because, of course, we all went out and got drunk at the Dirty Duck, there was a leveler. If I could drink like the rest of them, and I could, I assure you, I was accepted.
Christopher's performance in Beckett made him the talk of London's theatre district. In 1961, he received Great Britain's Evening Standard Best Actor Award for his role as Henry II.
Peter O'Toole was originally going to play the king. He suddenly tore off to the desert to play Lawrence of Arabia. Come on, man! So I took on the role of Henry II. It was a hit of the season, and Peter O'Toole, I remember, came back months later, backstage to see me. First thing he did was he rushed into my dressing room, and he took his pants down and showed me his ass. He said, you see what they've done, those camels? He said, all I do is ride bareback on these bloody things. Look at my ass, look at my ass. He screamed at me in fury. While you're sitting here in luxury playing my part. I could have been safe here playing the king, and you sent me off to... And he went on like this. I must say it was raw. His ass was raw. And it makes me think, is it still raw, I wonder? Is it still raw after all these years?
To be or not to be? That is the question.
In 1964, he took on a familiar role in a risky production. It was the BBC's first attempt at staging an outdoor television production of Hamlet. His Prince of Denmark won rave reviews, and the show won an Emmy Award.
It was marvelously received with a great cast. Robert Shaw was the king. Michael Caine played my Horatio. Donald Sutherland. Donald was still mumbling in those days, and you sort of always want to say, what? Sorry, I didn't miss that. It was kind of unfortunate. It was the wrap-up of the whole play. No, I always tease him about that.
There's haste to hear it, and call the noblest to the audience. For me, with sorrow I am...
But he was wonderful in it, and God, what a company. Beautifully directed by Philip Saville. That I was very proud of.
Christopher's second wife, Patricia Lewis, was a young British journalist with the Daily Express. They met when she was assigned to interview the dashing Canadian actor at Stratford-on-Avon.
She was a very bright writer. We went out and she showed me London, and she had an entree to all these places because she was a well-known member of the press. She had a terrible accident, and a very sad accident in which she broke her jaw and had a clot on the brain removed, but she recovered. Mercifully. And then we married right after that and settled down on Park Street, but our marriage did not last, and I think we'd been thrown together so sort of perhaps passionately and over-dangerously possessive because of her accident, that the energy that we'd expanded through those horrible months almost had drained us dry.
Professionally, his film career was blossoming. Christopher's next challenge came in the form of a movie musical, destined to become one of the most popular films of all time.
When I heard that they were hoping to entice Chris to play Captain Von Trapp, I did a lot of praying because I knew that he would bring something to the film, and that would be a kind of astringent quality that was really necessary. The whole company, including our director, Robert Wise, recognized that it could be, if we weren't careful, very saccharine. He does have a slightly awesome quality about him. I was scared about working with him at first and wondered if he would be approachable. I think everybody just adored him.
Movies like The Sound of Music and Fall of the Roman Empire brought Christopher international fame. But they also typecast him.
I think people got stuck in their head that I was a classical actor and able to speak well and suggest another period and wear costumes well and look natural in them. As simple as that. And of course, at that time, it was the fashion to do big epics.
Fashion took on a whole new meaning in this campy 18th century romp called Lock Up Your Daughters, where Christopher played a character only a future wife could love.
Playing Susanna York's loving maid was this very attractive, very good actress called Elaine Taylor. She was only about 23. I think I was 36 or 7 going on 80.
Now you'll speak for me, Cousin Edgar.
My eye was on Elaine, and she would have absolutely nothing to do with me. She found me totally unattractive, revolting, in fact, drunk all the time, off screen, and getting fat.
Wasn't drunk all the time, half the time maybe. What was so astounding was that he could give such a wonderful performance when he was, let me say, a little, loose in the legs. But we were in Ireland, and those long shoots, and it was the fashion in those days. I mean, all of his mates and all of those men at the time drank. They didn't do drugs, they didn't do anything else. The thing was liquor. He was ready for someone, I think, to put a bit of order in his life, and I was young enough and had the energy then to do it. We fell in love, and it was good timing, probably on both our parts. And I shouted a lot and threw a few teapots and said, "That's it," and left. Not for that long, but I came back and he was penitent and tried again.
I quit the scotch and I drank gallons of wine instead. And I started to lose weight. I went and worked out in gyms and got into real shape, and I fell in love with myself as well as Elaine.
On the rare occasions when Christopher slows down, it's here at the Connecticut country home he shares with his wife Elaine. They have been married for 32 years. This is their oasis.